Hey, what's up, guys? I'm TPB Robonyzer, and welcome to some GBA post-draft power rankings. So, a quick disclaimer: these are not official power rankings; they're our personal opinions, mine and my partner Justin. You can introduce yourself.
What's going on, people?
Yeah, so there's Justin. His link will be in the description, and we're just gonna give our personal opinions on the Season 9 draft that just happened earlier today. So let's uh, I got another disclaimer. So a few of these graphics come from the GBA channel. The link will be in the description. And the first slide we got here is the tiers for the S tier mons, I guess, the Ubers that are allowed this season. So you can see what's banned on the left and then what's allowed in tier 1 and 2. The basic rules are that you cannot make these Pokemon Z-mons unless they're italicized. So that would be Tapu Koko, Lando T, Celesteela, and I think that's it. So they're not allowed to be Z-Mons, but you're allowed to draft them, and each team can only have one of each. So, all
The
right,
only other
yeah,
disclaimer I want to throw in, I guess, is the a certain couple move slot syndrome. I think like Xerneas isn't allowed,
right,
Geomancy, and I think Mega Kang, Seismic Toss.
right. I kind of disagree with the Mega Kang Seismic Toss, but whatever. So let's, I'll show you the draft order real quick. This has all the coaches of the season, the draft order, and their Twitter handle. So feel free to go check them out, and let's get right into the first team. So first up, you know what? We're not getting into the first team. This is the format of yeah, my bad. This is the format of the video. So in the top left, you'll see the logo, the team, and their Twitter handle. To the left, you'll see our grades, but we're not going to reveal that till the end. In the top right, you'll see the tier 1 and the tier 2. Then in the bottom right and main section of the screen, you'll see the rest of the draft. All right. So
let's
now,
let's get into it. I'm
yeah,
ready to
now
start
the
ripping
first
some
team.
things apart.
All right, so I'll read this one off first. So this one is
Uh-huh.
the Durham Dragons, coached by 6-foot hacks. So the team is Marshadow, Darkrai, Garchomp, Ferrothorn, Thunderous Eye, Snorlax, Cresselia, Comfey, Alamomola, Nidoking, and Mega Gallade. So you want to get started on this one?
What a team! Like honestly, I'm gonna get into the disclaimer, or not really disclaimer, but my personal thoughts. I think of all the Pokemon that was still like left legal or allowed in the season, Marshadow is by far the most busted. Like this thing is stupid good, even without being like a Zmon limitation. Its stabs are unresisted. Its move pool is great. Its speed turn attack power is phenomenal. Like this was the best round one mon. I have no doubts that this was the best round one mon. And 6-foot hacks really took a good choice with this mon.
Mm-hmm.
And the team as well is just built super well around it. Like you have really solid speed tiers. Thundy T is really good. Like you got Garchomp also very consistent. Mega Glade's nice at 110. He's also got good anchor mons like Aloe and Snorlax that
Mm-hmm.
like help round it out. Like I really like this team.
Yeah. So I definitely agree. I do really like this team. I think Marshadow is like at the least top 3 and arguably the best to draft. But so the first thing I saw with this team is that the speed tiers here, despite being such a fat team, are actually really good. You have 2 mons at base 125. You have 1 mon at base 111. You have 1 at 110 and 1 at 102. So the speed tiers are actually like really good, even though you see so many fat mons like Ferrothorn, Cresselia, and Snorlax and Aloe. The speed
Mm-hmm.
tiers are still there, along with all the fat, which makes the team so much harder to deal with and so much harder to prep for, because you have so many offensive threats and defensive threats that you have to prepare for at the same time. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I feel like he did a really good job drafting around sort of the balanced, I guess, play style. This is definitely a solid balance build, and he's got a lot of power on this team. The Marshadow has like base 125 attack and technician. Darkrai's at 135 special attack. Mega Gallade at 165 attack. And then, Nidoking has the coverage with Sheer Force Life Orb. There's just so many things this team can do, along with the fat you get from Pharaoh, Crest, Aloe, Snorlax. And the fat even like it works really well together because
Mm-hmm.
most of them have reliable recovery. You have the wish support from Alamomola. Pharaoh and Comfey can pass leech seeds into I mean not pass, but go for a leech seed and switch into other fat threats to just make them even fatter. There's also some cleric support from Comfey, and then even Lunar Dance with Cresselia.
Yeah, exactly. Like the defensive backbone is honestly what's the icing on this cake. Just like
Mm-hmm.
Crest Snorlax in of themselves is just stupid fat together.
Mm-hmm.
Knock is not even a problem for those mons. Like Comfey doesn't mind it. Ferrothorn tempts you to do it every single time. Doesn't have any issue with it. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is really solid. The only thing I really kind of dislike about this team is his removal.
Mm-hmm. I
Like
agree.
he's limited to Comfey, Dundee T. They're both decent enough to say it's passable, but I don't like it necessarily, especially alongside Ferrothorn, who
Mm-hmm.
likes setting up hazards, and it's also just not the greatest in the world. So
Yeah,
that's my only real
sorry.
knock against this team. No worries.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I have another thing. It's like super small that I had an issue with, and that's I feel like Darkrai wasn't the best option because I feel like a normal Deoxys was still around, and the Darkrai it gave the exact same speed tier as Marshadow, and there were already a few solid special attackers on the team in Thundy and Nidoking, so I thought Deoxys was better to get more offensive spikes, another spike setter, which is always good, and it's got a new speed tier that outspeeds his entire team. So I thought that was a bit of a better option, but I mean, Darkrai it's a great Pokemon. I can't really knock it too much.
Yeah, his speed tiers are a bit odd in a sense because he does have a bunch of like things paired together the same
Hmm.
speed tier. Marshadow, Darkrai, 125. Dundee Eye and Gallade is like 111 and 110.
Hmm.
Nidoking, Cresselia, both at 85. Although, be it, I really don't count them as either because Nidoking will always want to be like as fast as possible, whereas Crest doesn't really run speed that
Hmm.
often. So that one's a little bit different. But either way, he has a bunch of mons like paired at that very same speed tiers together.
Hmm. Yeah. So, I think are we ready to move on to grades?
Yeah, we covered the bases with this mon. This team is pretty straightforward. So
Yeah, and we got
I like
16
it.
teams. We got 16, so we're gonna try and wanna get through them kind of quick. So,
Yeah.
revealing the grades, we both gave it an A minus. Like overall, if it was a really good team, I just felt like there were a few minor flaws, mainly being the removal, and I felt like I didn't really mention this before, but I feel like if one core component of the defense goes down, it might be hard to sort of pick up momentum again because the typing works so well together in the defensive core and the roles that when you lose one, it might fall apart. So I saw maybe that could happen and hold the team back, but overall, it's a great team.
It depends on which component goes down, but yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, this team is verging on a B plus. But the fact that it's still very competent and Marshadow is just so stupid good is enough
Hmm.
to bump it up to an A minus for me.
Yeah. It's the perfect mix of offense and defense for me. But let's move on to the next team.
All right,
So,
yeah, we covered
yeah.
this one. So
Aster
let's see,
J, you can go over this one.
Asta. Aster J, he's got Dawn Wings, Necrozma, Mega Mawile, Torrentee, Rotom Wash, Nidoqueen, T-Tar, Reuniclus, Cobal, Mence, Licky Licky, and Articuno.
Hmm. Interesting team. So,
Yeah, this
yeah.
team was very. Oh, sorry. I, I'll also go over this one.
Yeah, you
It's a
can start.
very weird looking team. Looking at it, like at first when I started looking at it, it was just kind of like I didn't understand the point of sand at first on this team.
Hmm.
It was just kind of there, but he also drafted around it like very surprisingly well. Like you got Reuniclus with Magic Guard, Licky Licky, Cloud9, Nidoqueen's immune, Cobal's immune.
Hmm.
I guess it kind of helps to like help whittle down opposing teams since he has so much surprising support for that kind of playstyle, but no real abuser with it.
Hmm.
So it's interesting. He's also got very powerful offense. Nidoqueen's a strong breaker. Mawile is stupid broken power physically.
Hmm.
Like it's interesting. I'm not a huge fan of the defensive core on this team just because it's very odd, but it
Hmm.
does synergize well together. T-Tar, Reuniclus go well together. Cobal makes dark types that would be very dangerous to this team, a lot less easier to handle.
Hmm. Yeah, so one thing I wasn't too big of a fan of on the defensive core was Licky Licky is his wish passer, and he sort of needs that to keep his Rotom and his Cobalion and his Tyranitar healthy. And Licky Licky is not a mon you want to be bringing every game, especially with Ubers allowed. So I feel like he
Mhm.
might have a hard time keeping his defensive, or I guess bulky in general, mons alive. I do think T-Tar was a good draft pick. I agreed with you. I thought sand was a weird option, but then once I looked into it, I realized that pursuit trapping is actually really good for this team. Being able to get rid of the ghost types that sort of threaten this team a lot is going to be really useful for T-Tar. So I
Mm-hmm.
understand the T-Tar pick. Yeah.
Like the other thing I also did notice very quickly is that his team does have a bit of an issue with rocks, and that his removal is
Mm-hmm.
kind of weirdish. Rotom is probably his best remover, but like Articuno is, even though it's kind of a decent defogger in the lower tiers, taking half is not optimal. Mence
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like running defog and takes a quarter. Torn team has regen, but you're not sacrificing regen just to take a quarter every single time coming in to validate
Mm-hmm.
it. Like, you need that removal. I'm not a huge fan of the removal on this team.
Yeah, that's definitely another thing I noticed. I also noticed that his rockers, they're pretty solid, but most of them are offensive, and again, they lack reliable recovery. So every time Mega Maw, Cobalion, Nidoking, yeah, or T-Tar decide to click rocks, they're just losing more health that they're not able to get back. So I thought maybe a more reliable, I guess is the right word, rocker would have been beneficial for the team. But, they're still good rockers. I just think they could be better. Let's see. Another thing I saw was with the typing synergy, he's got 4 Mons that are weak to ground. Granted, he has a lot of immunities, but Edgequake is going to demolish this team. Looking at it, he only has, I think, 1 Mon, Rotom, that isn't weak. Not weak, my bad. That isn't taking a lot of damage from Edgequake coverage. That's really his only switch in, and again, it doesn't have reliable recovery. So he might have to rely on Licky Licky, or he might just fall over to the strong Edgequake attackers.
Yeah. Like you said this team was a bit Edgequake. I kind of thought this team was a little electric weak because
Mm-hmm.
Nidoqueen is his only real
Yeah.
immunity to that. But like he's got a lot that's just no other resist other than that. So I think he's going to be depending a lot on Nidoqueen to come to a lot of games because Volt Turn can be very annoying for his team to deal with without it.
Mm-hmm. Being weak to Bolt Beam and Edgequake is not a good combo. So, do we got anything else to say?
Like as much as I'm knocking against this team, I do think even though it is a bit weird looking, it still does have very potent answers. Like it's still very strong offensively, but he's gonna
Mm-hmm.
have to play around it well defensively. And we're gonna need to see how well he's able to handle with Licky Licky in a tier of where Ubers kind of just make it set up fodder or just kind of don't care about it at all that much. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
have to see how he plays it.
Yeah. So, let's move into the grades real quick. You know what? I've got one more thing to mention that we didn't really cover. Is there is a
Mm-hmm.
Trick Room option on this team? He has the Reuniclus, the Necrozma, and the Mega Mawile. So Trick Room is an option. He just doesn't have the best setters because they don't gain momentum for the rest of the team, like to
Mm-hmm.
bring in the abusers. But overall, there is an option there, and it could work out really well for him, having both the speedy option, quote unquote, with Torrentine and Cobalion, and the slow Trick Room option with Necrozma, Reuniclus, and Mega Maw.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, so now we can move on to the grades. I think we agreed on this one as well. Oh no, we did not. I gave it a B. You gave it a B plus.
I actually was looking around and I started changing it mid as we talked through it. I
Oh.
changed it to a B. So yeah, I knocked it down a little bit. I think it is very dependent on certain Pokemon. He's going to have to play around it very carefully, but I feel it's still a very competent draft. Like no knocks, not knocking too hard against it. Like it's still
Mhm.
very much usable. So yeah, I think he can do very well with this.
Yeah, it's a good draft, just nothing exceptional. All right,
Yeah,
so moving on to the next team, we have Randy and oh, I don't know his team name. My bad.
I can't say I've heard of this guy before this.
But
Must be
yeah. So going over his team, we've got Yveltal, Megalodios, Clefable, Infernape, Suicune, Roserade, Jolteon, Metagross, Porygon2, Hippowdon, and Lycanroc. Normal. Yeah. Whew, this is a weird team.
yeah, like we hit on the sand team last time being weird. This
This
just
is.
sand without synergy. Like the other one
Mhm.
had synergy with like Licky Licky, Reuniclus, stuff like that. I mean, other than Magikarp, Clefable, what does sand benefit?
Like Lycanroc is a bad abuser in my opinion because it's already fast without it, and it's not strong enough to sweep. So I don't think it's a good option. it might be able to pick up some KOs in the sand with splintered storm shards because it is one of his Zmons. But overall, I think the sand option is not good here. Chipping down your own Suicune, Megalodios, Porygon 2, and Yveltal is never a good thing. So I think the sand actually hurt this team more than it helped. But other than the sand, I like this team a lot. So looking at Yveltal and Megalodios, those are, in my opinion, two of the best mons allowed. Yveltal is so scary, and it can do so many things. It could be physical or special, or it could even be bulky. And then it also has the scarf option. It has so many things. All right, I've been talking. You can talk.
Yeah, I'll just jump on in. Mega Latias, or I think it's just better known as Mega freaking Cresselia, is stupid, ridiculous in format.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it can just run so much. It can be fat. It just doesn't die. It can be fast as well. Like, it's one of the best mods in format. It's stupid good. I really like that paired up with like Clefable. Like, how are you getting rid of it? Most people would try to toxic it. Then Clef is just Magic Guard, and it doesn't really care that much about it. Ape is good momentum. Suicune is useful, though the sand kind of sucks for it. Same deal goes for Roserade. Offensive Roserade is very threatening, but defensively, it may not have as much longevity since Sandstorm cuts out on its synthesis. Jolteon's good speed, which this team really needed. I love Metagross. You know how much I love Metagross.
Definitely do.
And the P2 is just a big old Wally boy.
Like, defensively, this team is so good. And then just, I hate sand on it because it hurts like almost all of his defensive core. Metagross and Clef are the only ones that aren't affected by it, and it hurts everything else. Like, I really don't like it. Adding sand knocked this team down a lot for me. And one more thing I have to add on about what I don't like about this team is his defoggers are Yveltal and Megalodios. And you do not want your two Tier 1 and Tier 2 Pokemon locked into a defogging role. Yveltal can do so much for a team. Megalodios can do so much for a team. And sticking defog on them every week is never a good thing.
Yeah, that fact did not escape me either. Like, this team is in dire need of some better, not better, but another remover, because you don't want to lock one of those two into defog every single week. Like, they can do so much more, and I think that just kind of sucks for them at this current state.
I agree completely. So, we got everything down we wanted to say?
Yeah, pretty much. So, like, honestly, main thing to recommend on this team, we're both not really huge fans of your sand core currently. This team is definitely could use some other kind of remover. Maybe, I don't know if I would say trade or get rid of Hippowdon or Lycanroc. But those are options I think you have available to possibly make this team better.
Yeah.
It's your call, though, honestly, at the end of the day.
And even then, if you bring your Hippowdon, bring Sandforce sometimes. If you're ever not bringing the Lycanroc, bring Sandforce, because Sand only hurts your team. But, yeah. So, moving on to the grades. I gave it a B. You gave it a B minus. You wanna... Ooh, you went lower. You want to talk about it?
Mainly just because, like, I felt this team compared to the last team, which was in a very similar situation. They're both kind of sandish teams. They're very unique in a sense that they're, like, very interesting picks to go around them. I just like this team less just because there's not as much synergy between, like, the sand and the other mons in the team. It just doesn't fit. So, like, again, we keep bringing up the sand. We just don't like it that much. I don't like how it fits.
I agree.
The other team built around it better. This just didn't.
So the reason I have it a little bit higher is when I look at the team outside of Sand, because that's not the only part of his team. He's got 9 other mons. The other 9 are so good, just so good together. P2, Suicune, Megalodios. It's gonna be so hard to kill. I
agree.
I love it. The bulky, stallish player inside of me loves this team. And then throwing on Yveltal Infernape to just have some offensive presence, I love it. So I couldn't knock it down that low. I felt like it was a solid team. I gave it a B. Just that
it's definitely justifiable. Yeah, I agree.
All right. So next team, you can go over this one. Definitely in the whatever Trubbish.
We probably should look at team names, but either way, this is coached by Definitely Aim. I mean, he's rocking with Kyurem White, Gothitelle, Shadow Tag Gothitelle more particularly, Tapu Fini, Volcarona, Nihilego, Mega Aggron, Staraptor, Virizion, Hoopa Unbound, Magnezone, and Flygon.
Whew.
Like, I'm gonna go into this one first because, as I think the resident expert of the two of us between Trap, I love this thing. Like, I think this thing is very underrated.
Mm-hmm.
It's it nearly got banned from Ubers for a good reason, and that was mainly because of its impacted tournament like settings. And Draft League is exactly that is
Mm-hmm.
the ability to just trap in and cripple Stings to let his big mons come in. Like Volcarona paired with Gothitelle is stupid dangerous. Like you cripple something with Confide or Charm, get in your Volcarona, start setting up.
Mm-hmm.
Cure 'em White, make it easier for it to come in, blast something to smithereens. Like
Mm-hmm.
Gothtrap is very good on this team.
Yeah. I've also used Gothitelle, but I think both of us, one thing we do understand is that Gothitelle does not come to every game. It just doesn't have the matchup sometimes. So
Yeah.
it's in the defensive core. The way I see it, it's Feeny and Mega Aggron just holding it down, and then Gothitelle is sometimes going to be there, and he's got a few bulky Pokemon, I guess, with Nihilego and Kyurem, but they're not defensive mons. And when I see Tapu Fini and Mega Aggron, I think you finish this core out with a Witch Passer, and you have an amazing defensive core, but then Deathly never got a Witch Passer. His last
That
four
again,
picks,
yeah.
his last four picks made me like I was so excited for this team for the first 7 picks because anything before Virizion, I feel like had a role because he sort of had the sweeper with Volcarona. He had the start of a defensive core with Feeny, Aggron, Nihilego, and then he had that amazing combo of Kyurem White and Gothitelle because Gothitelle can really take out all the super fat passive things that Kyurem White can't really break through. And then he picked up Virizion, Hoopa-U, Magnezone, and Flygon. Magnezone doesn't really add anything to this team. Most of the steel types that Magnezone will be trapping, Gothitelle for the most part can trap too. So I don't really agree with the Magnezone pick. Virizion added a decent speed tier because his speed tiers, when you look at the team, are awful. He needed to get
Mm-hmm.
something faster than Virizion in his lower picks, and he needed to get something different from Hoopa-U to bring maybe some more removal to his team, some more speed to his team. Because Hoopa-U is just another breaker among Kyurem White and Staraptor that he did not need. So I just feel like he had the start of a great team, and in the end, it just didn't work. It didn't work together. I feel like he could have done so much more, and this team is going to struggle defensively. And then offensively, because it lacks the speed tiers, it's not going to be able to function as good as it could.
Yeah, I do agree with just about every point. I do disagree with Virizion. I do think it has a decent role in this team as his defensive core is fairly knock weak, like other than Aggron, just because Feeney needs leftovers recovery.
I
So
guess.
having something that punishes knock is justifiable. So not pun intended. uh I definitely agree. It hates pains me to say it because I love Hoopa so much, but when you're on a team that's running Gothitelle and people are gonna want to avoid being trapped by that, people are gonna bring momentum. They're gonna bring
Mhm.
U-turn, and Hoopa hates that more than anything else.
Mhm.
So like that's not really a good fit for this team. Magnezone, you're just incentivizing people to run Shed Shell more often, which sucks for Goth and
Mhm.
itself. Flygon,
I mean, it's there, but
eh,
what does it add to the team?
it just keeps the team. It just gives them a ground type, I guess, which I think is just more of a fill your pick kind of team than instead of the
Mhm.
actually being a good member of it.
And I think there were better ground type options because looking at this team, the hazards are only Aggron and Nihilego. So having another ground type that actually gets Stealth Rock could have been so much better for the team. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do agree with that.
Mhm.
Like this team's speed tiers are a bit of an issue, which is unfortunate. I do think that is going to lead him more so to rely on Gotha Trap just because he'll need to more prioritize setup sweeping with Volcarona, more prioritize getting in and trying to toxic stall certain targets or trap walls and just cripple them till the end of
Mhm.
days.
Yeah.
So I think that is going to be force him to be more dependent. But as we have said, it can't come to every game or it shouldn't come to every game because there are matchups that just can't do anything in.
Mhm.
And this team will struggle in those matchups.
Yeah. And then one last thing, I need to point it out because I gave this team a very low grade in comparison to the other teams. Is the removal on this team is basically Feeny because other than that, you have Staraptor and Volcarona, which are the two mons you want to defog for. And then you have Flygon, which isn't coming to every game, and when it does come, it'll most likely be Scarfed or maybe a Dragon Dance set every once in a while. So the removal here is really relying on Feeny, and when you don't have the Wish Passer, it's just not a good option in my opinion.
Yeah, the wish passing I definitely think is something this team could desperately use. Like Mega Aggron could make use of it, Feeny can make use of it. Like if anything, I think that could go possibly on this team. Flygon and Hoopa are definitely prime suspects.
I think the bottom row in general is definitely the weakest point of this team.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
All right, but let's move on to grades. We've talked about this team a lot. So, all right, I gave it a C plus. You gave it a B minus. All right, you gave the same grade as the last team, I think, right? Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, I gave it the same team as the last team. It's not completely dead in the water. Like it's got ways to go. I really do. Part of me maybe it's just because I'll just generally like Gothitelle, and then Kieran White is just something that generally attracts me. But either way, I still think I'm fine with this grade. It's not a terrible team, but it's not good by any means. It has things like the last team that you can take two or so mons that you take them out that you could possibly make this team better with. So
there is a few ways this team can be improved. So there is that, but I don't know. I felt like there were so many flaws to the team that I couldn't really give it a B grade. This might be my lowest grade. I can't remember.
It is your lowest grade.
Whew. All right. So let's move on to the next team.
Yep. All right. So a nice fresh upbringing from the I would not say subpar, but less suboptimal team we saw last time. We now have the San Jose Sharpedos coached by Tom, and this team is I like this team. Like we got Megalucario, Coco, Weavile, Gliscor, Amoonguss, Latios, Araquanid, Kofag, Cloyster, Mesprit, and Scizor.
So I'm gonna get started on this one. So for the first three picks, I was so scared. I saw Megalucario, I saw Tapu Koko, and I saw Weavile. I was so scared this team would be hyper offense. But then I saw the Gliscor pick and I saw the Amoonguss pick, and I love this team. I love the fact that he got so many fast Pokemon in his first three picks that are reliable mons that you can bring to almost every game. So he's always going to have the speed presence there. He's always going to have it the presence, and he's got a lot of power in those first three picks. Coco, Megaluke, and Weavile, they work great offensively, and they cover both sides of the spectrum. Weavile's physical, Coco can be mixed, Lucario can be mixed. I feel like they work so great offensively, and then throwing in the solid backbone of Gliscor and Amoonguss, and then some of the later picks of Kofag, Mesprit, and Scizor, and even Araquanid, I guess. There's a lot to like about this team because it has so much offense and defense put together. It's just like the Leo's team where it's a perfect balance, in my opinion, of offense and defense.
Exactly. And unlike some of the other offense teams, like this team has like it's obviously primary mode, which is just going full fast and hit hard. This team also has a pretty solid trick room mode and functioning under it. Like Amoonguss can just sponge and stall out turns. Kofag can set up and work very well under it as well. Araquanid also works very well under it. Like you've got a nice trick room option as well. Mesprit also can set it too. Like I really love I love this team. The only thing that keeps this from being like an A plus team is he does have a bit of a ghost weakness, but Weavile is a pursuit trapper, as just it can kill them very easily. It doesn't necessarily solve the problem because typically if you bring in like this one of the scarier ghosts in the league, like let's say like Lunala, something will probably go down, but Weavile will be able to revenge kill afterwards.
Well, Lunala was actually undrafted. I'm very surprised, but Necrozma Dawnwings went basically the same mon, just worse. So
I'm just saying in general, like ghost types, there isn't a real switch into it other than Weavile to revenge kill.
And like I think about half the teams have a ghost type, so it's kind of hard for this team. I agree with a lot of the things you said. One of the main things I wrote down was the Trick Room option sets this apart from the other teams because while there's so much power in the first three picks, Trick Room Mesprit U-turning into Araquanid with like a banded liquidation, that's gonna be a sleeper threat. That thing is gonna tear apart everything because the main switch in, I guess, that would be in the higher tiers and Primal Groudon is banned. So banded liquidation is just gonna claim KOs whenever it comes in. I also another thing I wrote down was this reminded me a lot of a sort of a Gen 6 team. Then throw on a Coco, throw on an Araquanid. It's it's very Orez OU. Like it reminds me of that, which I mean, it's not really a good or bad thing. It's just something I noticed. I do like the Cloyster option because it gives him both a potential sweeper and a potential hazard stacker for his offensive options. So man, I love this team in general. It's good.
Not to mention only a spinner, just because
Mm-hmm.
while you don't want to default tip away your webs, and even though it may not come often, just having a spin option to keep your webs up with Cloyster is always nice to have.
Mm-hmm. And
Like,
then
I really like this team.
yeah, and this team like on the removal, otherwise from aside from Cloyster, there are some solid options because you have bulkier options in Gliscor and Scizor, and you have the offensive options of Latios and Coco, which can also be bulky with like Roost. So I feel like he's got his hazard game on lock because he has both the removers and a few good setters. He's got Gliscor and Mesprit, which are in general really solid rock setters. So I feel like the hazard game is pretty solid. I feel like everything about this team is just solid.
Yeah, he's got every single hazard under disposal. He's got spikes from Cloyster, rocks from Gliscor, T spikes from Kofag, and
And
webs from
Cloyster.
Rakridden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think we've talked about how much we like this team enough. Let's move on to the grades. So we both gave it an A. Good job. Good job, Tom. Good team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was no
Yeah.
mystery. This was a good team.
You got anything else to add?
Nope. I think I've really much covered it. Good team. Only thing keeping this from an A plus is slight ghost weakness, but we've always got that kind of covered as long as you play it well.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's move on to the next team. We've got Nexus in the fat team. All right. So, ooh, Pittsburgh Peaches. I love it.
I love this boy.
All right. We got Zygarde complete. We got Celesteela.
Big Daddy.
We got Mega Venusaur, Primarina, Rotom, Heat, Uxie, Buzzwole, Zoroark. And then, for some reason he picked up offensive mons, Mimikyu, Gorbis, and Porygon Z, but who cares about them? We're here for the fat mons.
What a team.
Yeah, ooh, this is a fun team.
Like, god damn. This team is the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mons are just so stupidly fat. Like, Zygarde complete, plus Celesteela. And then it has such good ice resist and like Mega Venu, Primarina, Rotom Heat. That's not basically, well, not even really, not until validates it, but just makes it that much easier to play around with. Like, I like that.
And another,
then you have
sorry, go on.
And then you have like another pairing that I absolutely adore. Buzzwole plus Celesteela. Buzz plus any freaking good steel type is just stupid and annoying to deal with. Like, he just doesn't die.
Yeah, this team is really fat, and even offensively, it's not bad. Out of those first 7 picks, the only passive mon is Uxie, because Steela, it throws off some strong heavy slams. Zygarde's got the 1,000 arrows it can spam. Venu is strong, and it even has options on both sides. Rotom Heat throws off the Fire Blast, and then Primarina and Buzzwole.
Overheats, but yeah.
Yeah, oh, my bad. The overheats and volt switches. And then Primarina and Buzzwole, they don't even have to be fat mons. They can just be like Specs, Scarf, or Banded, and they can just throw off strong attacks and kill things. This team, this is a fun team.
Yeah, it's the bottom 4 though that we have to start addressing, which is where things kind of get a little bit more gray. Like, Zoroark, to an extent, I kind of do like on this team.
Yeah,
just
I like
because
Zoroark.
When you don't see it coming, like, it can catch something off guard, thinking, "Oh, it's just another one of the bulky walls coming in," and then you get blasted. It's annoying. Mimikyu, same boat. It guarantees takes a hit. It can set up and do stuff. It's not the greatest thing for the team, but at the same time, I'm not upset by it. I want to know why Gorbis is on the team, though.
I don't understand. I'm in the same boat as you. We've got our strong, bulky water type and Primarina just two rows above it, and then he picks up a Gorbis, and I don't understand. It doesn't add anything to the team, and there are a lot of things this team lacks that I will get into soon. But Gorbis adds nothing to the team. It adds like a potential sweeper, I guess. But then you already have the Mimikyu, you already have the Steela, you have the sweeping options. So I don't
Yeah,
get it.
like as far as I'm aware, Smash Pass is banned.
It
I
is
think there's
banned.
like speed passing. I know is allowed, but like I without Smash Pass, Gorbis is not needed on this team. Prim does his job infinitely better.
Yeah.
And
If
then
sorry, go on.
I guess I'll get sorry to cut you off then. But I guess lastly, I guess since we've already ripped on Gorbis enough, PZ it fits the team somewhat. This team already is not lacking in special attackers by any means, and I don't see its exact need for the to be on the team
Mm-hmm.
because this team kind of could use some more speed. Not gonna lie.
Uh huh. It's one of the things I'm going to talk about. It definitely needs the speed. If I remember correctly from the draft stream, Speed Bass I think is banned, or at least it's banned to passing into Ubers. I can't remember which it is, so to clarify there. But Porygon Z, it's strong, I guess. I don't think it really adds anything to the team. But all right, main issues. Look at these 11 Mons, and he has one hazard setter. Count him, one. He has Yuxi, and it's the most passive member of his team. Rocks are not going to be up in most games, in my opinion, because Yuxi is so easy to take advantage of, and it's his only setter. So Rocks aren't going to be up, which sort of really hurts the fat members of the team because they can't get as much chip as they would like to. And then in the same boat, look at all 11 members of his team, and he's got one remover, and it's Rotom Heat, the Mon he wants to remove 4. So I really hate everything related to hazards on this team because Primarina and uh, I guess Zygarde are really going to be hurt by the hazards because they don't have great reliable recovery, and the team lacks a Wish Passer. I think it lacks a Wish Passer. So they're just gonna be weakened and weakened and weakened by the hazards, and it's not gonna be able to go away because Rotom is his only remover, and that mon's not gonna come to every game. And when it does come, it's taking 25% from the hazards that it's trying to remove. So that's one part I just could not get behind.
Yeah, I did not realize the Yuxi only being the only rocker. That definitely
Mm-hmm.
hurts this team a lot. I do pretty much. I have to agree with everything you've said on that hand. Like this team, when you're a bulky team, you want to punish your opponent trying to switch around you as much as possible. You
Mm-hmm.
need hazard setters. You need multiple setters in that.
Mm-hmm. And then one other thing, you already briefly mentioned it. The speed tiers here are awful. Like they're unacceptable. It's Zoroark at the only mon over 100, and then it goes to Mimikyu, Porygon. It's not good. The speed tiers mean that any fast, strong attackers running Adamant and Modest. So like Tom's team that we just went over, Adamant Mega Lucario is gonna demolish this team. Modest Tapu Koko, Adamant Weavile, they're able to just do so much more damage because he Nexus has no way of punishing his opponent for running Adamant and Modest.
Yeah, this is like the common trapping and flaw of like so many like just straight up bulky fat teams without like a good speed mon or speed tiers. They just don't. They can get punished so hard by it.
Mm-hmm. That's why you got to make your offensive picks count. The Gorbis and the Porygon Z could have been swapped out for faster threats or more hazards, and it would have made the team so much better. But Gorbis and Porygon Z they're there. But
Yeah.
yeah, are we ready to move on to grades?
Yeah. Before we do that, I might to I'm gonna go do a little adjustment real quick because
Okay.
I didn't realize the Yuxi being the only rocker in the team. I did see the other flaws, but yeah, that one I think is enough to knock me down one additional peg for me. Like this team desperately needs speed. It desperately needs extra hazards. It's going as good as this bulk is, and there will be teams that this bulk alone will be able to just completely irritate their opponent
Mm-hmm.
to no ends. But there are going to be teams like the Sharpedos that will be able to blow through this team,
Mm-hmm.
no problem because of the speed.
Yeah. This team, it's definitely going to get some wins just because it's so fat. But in general, I had to give it a bit of a low grade. So moving on to the grades, I gave it a B minus. You gave it a B. As we said before, it's so fat, but it has the crippling flaws that you can't ignore.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So let's move on to another solid team. And that is Nate, Mewtwo fan Nate, and he picked up Mewtwo.
Oof.
Yeah,
The
you can go over this
mascot.
team.
All right, let's see. Oh, am I going over it?
Yeah.
Oh, alrighty, let's
My
do
bad.
this. I didn't realize you were cut off a little bit. Anyways, Mewtwo, Naganadel, Skarm, Sylveon, Mega Gyarados, Terrakion, Arcanine, that's my boy, Seismitoad, Decidueye, Tornadus Eye, and Galvantula.
Whew,
Oh,
I love
this is
it.
a good. This is a team.
This is a
Like,
team.
let's looking into it. The speed tiers are very nice. Mewtwo's at 130. Naga's also at a very high speed tier. It's also
121.
got web support, which makes it just amplifies this up even more,
Mm-hmm.
making Dragon Dance Gyarados a much more scarier sweeper.
Mm-hmm.
Even giving some of the other mons that typically don't run offense but have the ability to as well. Like we could potentially see like offensive Seismitoad if we wanted to, even Arcanine.
Mm-hmm.
Like this team's got its defensive backbone is amazing. Sylveon's fat as heck and it wish passes into the other mons. Arcanine's a big boy.
Mm-hmm.
Decidueye is a very good defog. It's a pretty good defogger. It has reliable recovery and roost. I like its typing a lot. Like it's pretty solid for that. Skarm. Speaking of defensive defoggers, that boy's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This team, I could spend forever talking about how good this team is.
Yeah. All right. So I'll go over my main points. And first up, his tier 1 and his tier 2. Mewtwo and Naganadel. Mewtwo is definitely top 3 up there with Yveltal and Marshadow because it can do so much. It's so strong, and it's gonna sweep a lot of teams by just clicking Calm Mind and then spamming its coverage moves. It's gonna like win games, and Naganadel can do the same. I think Naganadel is the best tier 2 allowed because it has almost no switch-ins to just the combo of Fire Blast, Sludge Wave, and then Dragon coverage. It's kind of hindered by the fact that it can't run Z Draco Meteor, but even then, after a Nasty Plot boost, this mon is going to be killing everything. Not everyone has a T-Tar, not everyone has a Heatran. So it's going to be able to just end some games really quick. And then along with those two offensive options, he has some sleeper options. He's got Mega Gyarados. He has like SD Terrakion underwebs, SD Decidueye underwebs. He's got like bulk up Torn. He could even run a Prankster Rain Dance set with Torn to get 100% accurate Hurricanes, along with the Swift Wind Seismitoad. There are just so many offensive options on this team, and it's backed up by a solid defensive backbone of Skarmory and Sylveon. And then you can sort of throw on whatever you need in the game. You could throw on an Intimidate Arcanine if you needed. You could throw on a bulky Decidueye if you needed, or a bulky Seismitoad, or even a bulky Gyarados. There are just so many great things on this team that it can do so much. I love it.
I agree with that. Like everything on this team has more than one role it can do. Like it's not like the team is like so like nothing on this team is so dependent on just to be one particular role. Like Arcanine isn't allotted to be only needed for its defensive purposes. It could be very much offensive if the team demands it. Like this team just has like everything on this team is versatile, which is just so good.
So my one knock against this team, and I think it's a pretty big one in my opinion, is this team is so weak to ghost types. You said this about another team, but he has one resist, and that's his Mega, which doesn't even resist before it Mega evolves. So throwing off just Shadow Ball after Shadow Ball is going to be so hard for this team to deal with. Marshadow is going to 6-0 this team because Mega Gyarados is then weak to the close combat. So it has so many options, but just having that huge ghost weakness holds it back. And then his one resist and Gyarados doesn't even have pursuit, so the ghost types can come in again and again and take on his Nate's team. So,
that is very true. Yeah,
that's my one knock against this. Do you have anything else you want to say?
Honestly, no. You already mentioned the ghost weakness, but basically, I feel like he is going to be hard pressed to deal with that. But other than that, I just think this team is just so beautifully built.
Mm-hmm. I agree. All right. So let's move on to the grades. We both gave it an A plus. This is an A plus team. I
Like,
Oof, it's so good.
when you're looking at something that you want to look as like the baseline of what you think you should try to build your team after, this kids is what you want to make your team look like. Well, maybe not, since you're not going to have Mewtwo and Naga in most
Yeah.
leagues, but you know what I'm saying. This team, like the style of this team, is exactly what you want to aim for. This
Mm-hmm.
is the standard.
Every mon here not only has one role, which a lot of teams don't have. Every mon here has like two roles. Skarmory, it's the bulky hazard setter and his removal. Sylveon, it's his cleric, but it can also be more offensive with Hyper Voice. Gyarados can be bulky, it can be a sweeper. Everything here has many, many things it can do, and they all fit well together. So,
Agreed. This is fantastic.
mm-hmm.
Great job, Nate.
All right. So next team. So Kyle A. Uh, he has Speed Boost Blaziken, Protean Greninja. No Battle Bond. They are separated, which I mean I disagree with. I think it should be Tier 1 combined, but
That would
alas,
be big busted though.
alas, he's got Protean Greninja. Then he has Zygarde, 100%, Excadrill, Ribombee, Thundee,
100%.
oh, 50%, Ribombee, Thundee, Klefki, Mega Blastoise, Celebi, Alolan Persian, and Swellow. So why don't you talk about it?
We're gonna ignore that second to last mon for a minute, but
Whoa, what a good mon.
I hate that cat so much. But anyways, this team is, well, it's to sum it up, it's almost purely hyper offensive. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you've got Speed Boost Blaze again, Greninja, that are just pretty much going to be pushing buttons to try to knock things out as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Zygarde, same deal. You can run bulky, but which I feel like it will have to run bulky in most cases for this team, just to try to have something that Sponges hits alongside, maybe like Mega Blastoise.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm not a huge fan of Excadrill on a team that doesn't have the sand option,
Mm-hmm.
but Excadrill in of itself still could be by itself and be fine, just because it's that good of a mon.
Mm-hmm.
Webs does help this team a lot. Thundee's
Mm-hmm.
powerful. Keys is very useful in this team. Spike stacking on hyper offense is very nice. Just also being a nuisance to provide utility, but like T-Wave. I
Mm-hmm.
really like everything on this team, but there is one big downside to it. This team is, if you put this team under Trick Room, it completely flips on its head and has nothing going for it.
Mm-hmm. And we did see multiple Trick Room options so far. Like it's not just gonna come to one game. There are multiple teams that have the option, and this team doesn't like it at all. But so that's I guess one of the main flaws. Some of the things you already went over how it's pretty good. Or I guess how it's more offensively oriented. I'll talk about how I like what he's done to make it offensive. So his hazard support is solid. He's got rocks on Drill and Celebi. He has spikes on Klefki, and he has webs on Ribombee. So he has multiple hazard options. He has good removal. He has spin on Blastoise to try and keep his hazards up. And he also has emergency defoggers with Prankster Klefki, and then the Speedy Mons and Swellow and Thundee. So I like anything that has to do with hazards. His speed tiers are amazing. He's got Speed Boost Blaziken. He's got the Ribombee at like 124. He's got what's it called? Gren at 122. Swallow at 125. He has the speed even without the web, so he doesn't rely on it.
I'm gonna jump in just because there is a point I want to disagree with the speed tiers being quote unquote amazing. Like I said, like I've already mentioned, the Trick Room. The problem is when you want a speed tiers, you need a range and you need something that kind of anchors out your draft. This
That's
team
fair.
speed tiers are very high, which is why Trick Room is such a problem for this team. Like, you flip this team on its head completely because its slowest mon is Mega Blastoise. I think it's 78.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's nothing that anchors this team down.
Okay, that is fair. I guess the point where I disagree with you about speed tiers is I feel like having mons at the mid range and having them at good intervals is most important because having Blastoise at 78 means the Pokemon at base 80 can't run Adamant. The Pokemon at like base 85 can't run Adamant or Modest. So I like that he has a good range of speed tiers, making sure mons run Jolly and Timid instead of Adamant and Modest. And I feel like one of the most important parts about webs teams is, can you function after the webs are gone? And this team definitely can. So I do like that. I don't know. I guess we'll agree to disagree there. Is
Mm-hmm.
there anything else I have to say? Uh, I think Protean Gren is overrated. Justin is going to disagree with me 100% on this, but I think it's overrated. Whatever. But yeah.
I do agree with that. I think I do disagree with that
Yeah.
statement. So, but either way, as much as I hate that stupid fucking cat, it's being a Zemon parting shot gives like new life to Klefki and Zygarde, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is something this team really, really needs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a very good choice. Put that damn thing to use somehow. People don't know I hate this Pokemon, but either way, I think hopefully he'll use it well. Thundy T is also a good solid Zmon. I think since you can't give the Blaziken, so yeah, I think that was the best choice he
Mm-hmm.
could have gone with otherwise.
Yeah. So let's move on to grades. I gave it a B plus, and so did you. It's a solid offensive team, but then again, it's an offensive team. It doesn't have too many options defensively, so that's what kept me from giving it an A. How about you?
This team is it's put this way, this team can get out of control real fast. It can get out of control and sweep their opponent very easily, but it also can get out of control and go downhill and crash very fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like the battles with this team are gonna go one way or the other very quickly, and it's really gonna come down to how well he can manage and prep and stop certain play styles. Like Trick Room will tear this team apart, but if your opponent doesn't have it or he's able to stop it with like Taunt Persian, this team can just go nuts.
Mm-hmm. It'll all depend on how Kyle feels about offense. So,
Mm-hmm.
next team, halfway through, and we got Lord Emvee. Why don't you talk about this one real quick?
Emvee. All right. Normally,
What?
well, I think as most people as most analysts have grown accustomed to ripping on Emvee's team, but for once,
I like
I
it.
don't have much to rip on him. I like this team.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got Ho-Oh, Giratina Origin, Mega Diancie, Alolan Muck, Keldeo, Bronzong, Shaman, Dugtrio, Raikou, Haxorus, and Smeargle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to jump in to say I really like the support around Ho-Oh. Grabbing
yeah.
the best defogger in the Ubers tier in Giratina Origin to pair alongside it was a very good call. Like that was, I think that's one of my favorite top two pairs for the tier 1, tier 2 mons.
Mm-hmm.
Mega Diancie is also pretty solid. It almost always when you see it in Ubers, it's always paired with Ho-Oh. So I think that's another solid pair with it. As far as the rest of his team goes, like I feel like it's also all in support of those top three mons. Dugtrio
Mm-hmm.
is there to target certain Pokemon that Ho-Oh hates, like rock types.
Mm-hmm. And it can get the steel types for Diancie.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I feel like this team is pretty solid. I do agree, Giratina O and then Diancie are amazing pairs for Ho-Oh, but then when you look at the rest of the team, it sort of just fell off. There's no more removers. His only remover for Ho-Oh is Giratina O. Ho-Oh does have Regenerator, so it's not as big of an issue, but it is 50% weak to rocks, so you really want more than one option, especially because in format, Giratina O can do so much more than be the bulky defogger, because it has base 120 offenses with the orb that boosts the dragon and ghost type attacks. So maybe a more offensive set or a calm mindset could come out, meaning Giratina doesn't always want to be defogged. You good?
Did I buzz out?
You're back. There was some static or something. But
Oh,
as I was saying, Giratina doesn't always want to run defog, and then Mega Diancie. One good prediction, and your Diancie's dead because a lot of the rock setters are ground types. Diancie will fall over to most earthquakes, so I just feel like there could be a little bit more support. It is solid overall, but it's pretty dangerous. It's gonna depend on how Emvee plays. Let's see. A few other things I noticed is this team is just. I feel like most of the mons here function well in Ubers. Like the Alolan Muck can take on a lot of the Ubers Pokemon, so can the Bronzong. And then having the Dougie to trap specific threats is great. Having the Webs option in Smeargle, it doesn't help the team as much as other teams, but it's always nice to have when you have a Haxorus and you have the Ho-Oh at base 90 and the Giratina at base 90. It's always good to have that option to just give you a little bit of an edge on the speed game. So I do like having the Smeargle there while still not relying on it. I think defensively this team is pretty solid. Alolan Muck, Bronzong, and then, Shaman, I guess, Giratina O. It's a pretty solid core. My one gripe with it is there is not a Wish Passer, and Alolan Muck and Bronzong love Wish Passers. They love them because they're so fat, and the main issue with them is keeping them alive. So if Emvee sort of has to end up running maybe a Gluttony Muck more of the time, it's not going to be able to take as many hits. The Bronzong, there's really no way for him to keep it healthy other than like leech seeding with Shaman, then switching into Bronzong, which is sketchy at best. So I feel like there could be a little bit of better support there. But in the end, this is a really good core defensively. And then I think Ho-Oh and Giratina are two of the better tier 1 and tier 2 picks. So overall, it's a good team.
Yeah, I do agree to most of it. There are some points I do disagree. Like the Muck running Gluttony is, yeah, it's a downside, but at the same time, it's not the end of the world. It's still really fat. It's still pretty reliable recovery. And as far as worrying about like having its berry getting knocked, that's why he has Keldeo.
That's
So
fair.
he'll have that as support. Diancie, yeah, coming on a hazard setters is very risky, though at the same time, also for things that will try to kill Diancie, Bronzong synergizes very well with that defensively.
That's fair.
Like I do think this team could benefit from a wish passing, something that could give like fat wishes. But as you've already mentioned, Shaman has Leash Seed, which isn't the best thing in the world. It's something, and also has that healing wish option as a last resort to give full power again to Giratina, to Muck, to Ho-Oh. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's just the full restore button. You can just push the last second if you feel it's going down.
Mm-hmm.
This
Yeah.
team, it's kind of annoyed by electric types to an extent, like especially like things that like the very common like flying electric types that aren't trapped by Doug Trio.
Mm-hmm.
So like I feel like this is where things like Raiku's real purpose is on the team, just because Ho Ho hates Volturn, like getting into it and then trying to get around it. I feel like that's the only thing that really validates Raikou on this team.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I disagree with you there. I don't like Raikou on this team. I feel like it doesn't add a speed tier he needs. It's right in between Dougie and Diancie. I don't think he really needs it. I don't think Volturn is too necessary on this team because he does have those solid pivots that can come in and threaten things out, such as Bronzong and the Alolan Muck and the Giratina. So I'm not too big a fan of it. I feel like there were better options, but it's decent.
Well, it's not that's for this team. I'm saying against it. Like his electric switch-in is
Yeah,
Dougie, and that's frail. So if that goes
yeah,
down,
I know what you were saying. I mean, it's a solid option against Volturn. I just don't think it synergizes well with the team. And he does have Shaman, which does resist the electric moves. So I don't know. I'm not too big a fan.
the problem is Shaman doesn't have momentum in of itself. So
That's
that's why I
fair.
just feel like Raikou has that better niche for it on the team. So
Yeah.
I'll agree to disagree with you there.
All right. So let's move on to the rankings. So I gave it a B. You gave it a A minus. We're disagreeing a good amount here. So
This is
why
like
don't you
the
start?
big one we disagreed on. Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know. I saw the flaws in it, and I think it's a solid team. I feel like there could be a bit more. I feel like there could be just a bit more Ho support with removal. I feel like there could be just a bit more going on for the team. But yeah. So moving on to the next team, we have I think GoldOA is how you say it. I don't know. And the New York Empoleon. So why don't you list off his team real quick?
all right, so we've got here Dialga, Tapu Lele, Zapdos, Victini, Ditto, nice and early Ditto,
Hell yeah.
Donphan, Vape, Serp, Crobat, Scrafty, and Mega Beedrill.
Mm-hmm.
Just a quick question: how triggered are you that Lele is not paired up with a Deoxys?
I am so mad because like that combination, it's just sitting there. It works so perfectly together. Deoxys avoiding the priority and then throwing off terrain boosted psycho boost. What isn't there to love? and then even like a nasty plot Deoxys with a sash. Ooh. But alas, that didn't happen. Oh,
I
what a
mean,
shame.
Victini is not a terrible replacement. Like, it's
That's
powerful.
fair.
Like, it's very versatile in of itself as well, which is nice. And these guys have the terrain that helps support Mega Beedrill from getting picked off by priority. So
Hmm.
it's not dead. I like where he did take it. So
Yeah, Lele's good. I'm a little triggered. But so okay, one thing I just got to point out is we haven't talked about Zmons a lot because overall they've been just the good options. But here you see a Z Scrafty when there's a Crobat on this team, and I'm
and a
a
Zapdos.
yeah even and a Zapdos like Zapdos it's strong. Crobat it can really use that Z Brave Bird. What is Scrafty gonna do with a Z move? Is it gonna try and like Dragon Dance sweep and click a Z move? Like I really don't understand why Scrafty was the Z option here. I just feel like there were much better options. But
Yeah, honestly, you could give him the Z to Ditto, which in some cases, like you could, if you predict what Ditto is going to transform into at a certain point, you could really screw over your opponent at the right time. Like,
better than Z Scrafty.
exactly, yeah.
But I mean, then again, it's a minor thing. So let's just get into the more I guess the main part of the draft. So, looking at his team, his rock setters are Dialga and Donphan, which are both solid rock setters, but they don't have reliable recovery. And I kind of wish that there were some better options. Like they're not bad at all. I just kind of wish there were more. Do you know what I mean? You can't really run an AV Donphan if you want to because it's sort of going to be clicking rocks. Dialga, it sometimes will have to give up a coverage move to click rocks. I wish there were more options, but it's not that bad of a not that bad of an issue, I guess.
I I do agree. It's not the end of the world, but at the same
Hmm.
time, like as far as also since Donphan and Dialga are not gonna. You also mentioned AV. Just I think also paired alongside Vaporeon, having Wish Pass into those two mons is just another piece of synergy I do like.
Hmm.
So whenever one doesn't run the rocks and who's running the assault vest, that's useful.
Hmm.
Other things I like with this team, I like Crobat for this team particularly.
I agree.
It's This team needed a fairy resist badly since Victini isn't willingly taking those hits. Fits
Hmm.
this team well. Speed tier is nice as well, transition wise.
Hmm.
As far as other hazards go, there is the
T
rare
spikes.
T Spike Mega B drill, but you're never doing
Yeah, maybe
that.
once, but yeah, I feel like this team could use some spike support because Mega Beedrill and Crobat sort of they really thrive off of threatening things out and U-turning. So I think spike support could help here, but again, it's not the end of the world. These are sort of minor issues. Some of the good things, the speed tiers here are great. We've got 145 with the Beedrill, then 130 with Crobat, and then 113 with Serp. So I can't complain there. And then he's got some of the slower options that you look for with Scrafty. So they're just they're solid speed tiers. It's I don't know. It's a good team. It's a good team.
It's a good team. It's got some downsides, but honestly, those downsides aren't like major
Yeah, they're not
killing this
major.
team downsides. They're just like annoyances. Like this could be better, but it's not terrible.
Mm-hmm. Let me. So okay, I was checking to see my grade real quick to see if I should bump it up, but I gave it the right grade. So you got anything else to say?
Honestly, change Scrafty from being a Zemon if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I don't see any real major changes this team needs at the current time.
Yeah, it's overall a good option, a good team. So, looking at the grades, we both gave it an A minus. It's a good team. There are a few minor changes that really the team could benefit from, but overall, the wish passing with the defensive core, and then the momentum with Victini, Beedrill, Crobat, and the power of Lele and Dialga, this team is gonna function pretty well. It's a pretty good team.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, next up, we have Old Man Tup. Quick
Tub.
disclaimer before you read this one off. Greninja Battle Bond is a tier 2. Tup just didn't want a tier 1, I guess. I don't get it, but whatever. Why don't you read off the team?
All right, Tub. Let's see what we got here. We got Greninja Battlebond, Skyman, Zeraora, Milotic, Mega Scizor, Latias, Miltank, Togekiss, Entei, Diggersby, and Claydol. I
Claydol.
don't I love that boy. But either way, I think the first thing that we have to obviously talk about is the disgustingness that is double flinch hack Skyman and Togekiss.
It's
You
a win
don't.
con. It's a win con.
Tub is tired of not getting W's at any point of I think last season, and
Mm-hmm.
I think he's just one. I think I respect the fact that this is just disgusting. This like you
Yup.
need to win by any means necessary. You do it.
Yup. That's.
It's you may be a scumbag, but you need those wins. Go take them.
Mm-hmm. So a few of the pros about this team. The speed tiers, again, same with the last team, are pretty good. We've got Zeraora at 142. We've got Battlebond Greninja at 122/132, depending on what form it's in. Then we have Skyman at 127. Then we also have some of the mid level speed tiers at Latias at 110 and Entei at 100. So the speed tiers are pretty solid here. Like we said, flinching, that's a win con. He's got some decent power on this team. The main one being like Banded Diggersby being able to pick up some KOs. And then he's also got the, more, I guess, utility killer is the right word, like with Zeraora, where it can sort of take on mostly offensive threats, where Diggersby and I guess Banded Entei can take on the fat threats. So I sort of like his offensive combo. I do like that this team has a good amount of momentum with Zeraora, Diggersby, Mega Scizor, and Greninja. So he can sort of get in his threats pretty easily. And then he's also not really lacking on the defensive core. Latias, Milotic, Miltank, Togekiss, and Claydol. All of them, other than Claydol, I believe, have reliable recovery. Also Mega Scizor, didn't even mention that. And then he's also got a Wish Pass from Togekiss if he really wants it. He's got Clerics with Miltank and Togekiss. It's a pretty well built team in my opinion.
Yeah, there is the other issue, as it says, is it kind of resembles the I forget who it was a few teams back, the hyper offense team or where it was, that this team is very fast. Its lowest speed tier I think is 75, so Trick Room will be a problem for this team too.
I think it's 70 for Claydol, if I
I
remember
thought it was
correctly.
75, I'm not sure. Either way,
Whatever.
it's still pretty fast. I think Trick Room is a definite concern to this team's well being, especially the offensive threats.
I I do see that. However, I feel like because he's got the slow or the bulky options with Miltank, Togekiss, Milotic, I don't think it's going to be as big of an issue as with the
Those are
others.
still at a high speed tier starting off though.
Yeah,
So
well, I think my point is that it doesn't really matter if they're slower or faster because they're going to take the hits. Whereas with the other offensive team, once Trick Room was up, Mons were dying. Whereas I feel like this has the defensive backbone to sort of still be okay against Trick Room. I think, yeah, that's my point. So,
I guess true. Although it does kind of like it's a weird mix max because you have so much hyper offense, but at the same time the balance is weird. I'm not
mm-hmm.
a huge fan of Miltank on this team just because Diggersby is just generally better sought for this team's function and purpose.
True.
I guess Rocks is a thing, but at the
Yeah.
same time, Diggersby hits harder. It also provides its own hazard support and spikes. Claydol is just a better rocker, and since it's more useful for the team, I'm not a huge fan of Miltank here.
Mm-hmm. I will. The one thing I will say about Miltank is, aside from Claydol, it's his only rocker, so he has sort of two low tier rockers, and I think it's good that he can choose between Miltank and Claydol. But I do get what you're saying. It's sort of just a worse normal type than Diggersby, but it does have the fat option, I guess. It's got Sap Sipper, which could be cool for Milotic and Diggersby, I guess, but he's not really too weak to grass. My main issue with this team that I wrote down is it's pretty Bolt Beam weak. Looking at his team, I don't think anything resists the combination of Ice Beam and Thunderbolt. Yeah, nothing takes anything better than neutral. So I feel like that might be a little bit of an issue for him. But again, it's not too big of an issue. It just depends on the mons he goes against.
Yeah, like Bolt Beam and plus like Hidden Power Fire would be something like defeating his best pivots for like Scizor and
Mm-hmm.
Claydol. Like it's gonna be a definitive problem for this team, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't often take styles into accountability when it comes to grades. But Tub is not a really aggressive player. He tends to play very safely.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think that if he's going to do well and play around that big hole, he's going to have to learn to be more aggressive and read into the situation.
Mm-hmm. There's one more thing I want to say before we get into grades. As I said before, Battlebond Greninja is a tier 2. He could have picked a tier 1, and there are so many good tier 1s around. Mainly Lunala and Groudon. They are so strong, and Groudon's pretty versatile. Groudon gives him another rocker. Lunala gives him more of a special wall breaker because both of his wall breakers are physical with Diggersby and Entei. So he has special mods that can win without flinching. um, so I do feel like there are some better options, but if he feels comfortable with Battlebond Gren, I guess I can't knock him too bad. But
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
So
a powerful kill leader. It's gonna do
true.
some work.
All
It's
right.
just he has to. Like honestly, my advice to you, Tub, is since there isn't much other than maybe switching Miltank off, you just gotta learn to play aggressively. You
Mm-hmm.
gotta. That's the you other than flinch hacking to people to death, which you probably will get a game or two just based on that.
Yup.
You gotta do it.
You got to know when to attack, and you got to know when to use your pivoting moves or your hazards with Diggersby and Greninja when you're forcing a switch. You just got to know what to click. But let's move on to the grades. So
Mm-hmm.
I gave it a B plus. You gave it a B. We both think it's a solid team. It just depends on how well Tup's gonna play with it. If he can get used to the play style. I like it overall. I like the defensive backbone to the pretty solid offensive team with good speed tiers.
Yeah, that's pretty summed up well.
Mm-hmm. All right. So next up, we got Aaron Cybertron with the Melbourne Rotom. So his team consists of Rayquaza, Aegislash, Mamoswine, Toxapex, Megalopony, Wobbuffet, Kartana, Gligar, Xurkitree, Magmortar, and Azelf. I like this team.
So this doesn't affect grades at all, but goddamn, you got some of my favorite Pokemon on this team, buddy.
Yeah, I see that Mamo. I see that Aegislash.
Oh man, if this was on style points, you'd win. All right, but in terms of how this team functions, it's pretty threatening, honestly. Like
Mm-hmm.
Aegislash, the coin flip toss just makes it so annoying to prep around and deal with. Like you don't know whenever that's gonna try to attack you, whether or not it could try setting up in your face another turn. It's so annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Mammo's just dangerous in every tier you face it or any mon it goes up against. There's very little that switches in safely to it.
Mm-hmm.
Ray is a big boy that has so much coverage. Toxapex, T-Spikes is really beneficial to this team's breakers. Like Lopunny really benefits from having things chipped down. Same thing with Kartana and Xurkitree.
Mm-hmm. So
The only
go on.
thing I'm on the fence with is Wobbuffet.
Well, I like Wobbuffet. I'm gonna be honest here. Whereas Deathly got Kyurem White, Gothitelle, I think Aaron got discount that with Rayquaza and Wobbuffet. I feel like Wobbuffet can come in and just sort of annoy your opponent to the point where like you throw off an Encore and you get in your free Rayquaza, or you get in your free like Z Hypnosis Xurkitree, your free Kartana, your free Mamo. I feel like Wobbuffet is just so annoying to the opponent where it provides the utility that his more offensive mons could really use to get them in safely. It's I guess a decent trapper because you can't really set up on it too much because of Encore, and you're kind of scared to attack it because of counter and mirror coat. So I feel like it's so annoying, and then it can remove some solid threats to just let his offensive mons push through. I like it.
Okay, but here's why I'm not a huge fan of it. Just because
Yeah.
the nature of his team, just is why Wobbuffet I don't think is going to function as well. Because the things that beat Wobbuffet are going to be the same things people are going to bring to deal with a similar Pokemon like Aegislash and Toxapex. Like you want to stop them from doing coin flips or just being sitting there in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Taunt is going to be a very viable thing to run against this team to shut down a lot of his threats.
That's fair.
Like Gligar can get taunted as well. Like also the other thing I did notice was his team is pretty fairly Ghost and Dark Week. Like Lopunny is an answer for both of that, but at the same time, his switch-ins kind of don't really exist outside of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely true. They both could be a bit of an issue. I feel like knockoff isn't that bad because of Z Kartana, and then again Lopunny with the Megastone. So I don't think knockoff is too big of an issue. Ghost types could be really threatening, but you know,
Wasn't really,
sorry, go on.
it wasn't really knocked that was specifically
Yeah,
hit.
that's
Saying
fair.
mostly just like ghost and dark coverage.
Hmm.
Like,
That's fair. So there is a bit of an issue there. I also feel like his defensive core could be a bit better. Toxapex, Gligar, and then like Wobbuffet and Aegislash, I guess. I feel like he's sort of going to be relying on his Toxapex and Gligar way too much because Aegislash, it doesn't have reliable recovery and there's no Wish Passer here, so he doesn't really want to weaken it, especially when it's going to be a solid win con against a lot of teams with like Autotomize or maybe SD, and then he also wants to save it around for those, annoying fairy types or something that could be a bit of an issue.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. But overall, man, this team is power. Rayquaza, Kartana, Xurkitree, and Mammo, and Megalop. Ooh, it's power.
Yeah, it's got a lot of raw power behind it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. So we got anything else to say?
I think we've covered most of it. I really like this team. Like I said, style points sometimes better than draft league grades.
But
But the only thing I would just say is I'm not a huge fan of Wobbuffet, but everything else I love on this team.
that's fair. He could drop Wobbuffet for a dark type, but let's reveal the grades. We both gave it a B plus. Solid team. Not without its flaws. It's good. It's good. Could be better, I guess. But
Mm-hmm.
all right. So let's move on. So number 13, we got Necrostevo with Xerneas, Landorus,
Oh.
Tentacruel, Hydreigon, Mega Charizard X, Slurpuff, Fortress, Mienshao, Alakazam, Rotom, and Barbaracle. And in case you didn't hear it at the beginning, Geomancy is banned on Xerneas. There is no Geomancy here. Thankfully, that would be broken.
But is that enough, though?
Yeah, it's still really good. Why don't you start talking about this team?
Boy, Xerneas, even without GM, Xerneas is just stupid powerful and hard to switch in and of itself. But as far as the team goes, I really like the synergy between a lot of the bonds here.
Mm-hmm.
You've got good support for it in the forms of like Fortress and Tentacruel, who set up hazards and then also spin for themselves. So you've got nice removal around that, and it helps chip away at your opponents. Lando T, solid bond. Hydreigon, I think synergizes also pretty well alongside it, just being dark resist, or not a lot of outside of Xerneas, so you don't have to worry about chipping at it. Very powerful. Zardex, I'm not overly a huge fan of, but it kind of does work
stuff.
here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does stuff things. Zam is a good sash. I guess not really. I guess it's an insurance policy. Would be the best way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just that last resort option. If something's going nuts, you have a backup plan.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them I really like, and the speed tier, of course, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll let you talk about Mienshao in a little bit, since that's your Modem I like a lot, brings a lot to the team. Volter and Defog. Typing wise, I also think really helps out. And then Barbaricle's just shell smash and go.
Yeah. I like this team. One of the things I noticed about it that was just like amazing that I loved was it. I think this team, I think it's fair to say it has the best hazard support out of any team, because when you look at it, it has every form of hazards. It has multiple ways of setting rocks and T-spikes, and then it also has mons that don't have to run the hazards. You have Puff that can run webs, or it can be Belly Drum. And then you have like Landorus that can be a scary sweeper or a defensive rocker. And there are just so many options. And then he has 2 spinners and 5 defoggers. Like he has the hazards down. He is gonna be controlling the hazards game whenever he's on the field. I feel like a couple of the issues I have is I feel like his speed tiers could be a little bit better. He does sort of rely on that Alakazam, because after that he has Mienshao at 105, which, yeah, that is his next fastest. So other than the Alakazam, his speed tiers aren't great. But I mean, Mienshao, that's a good mon. That mon's amazing in Ubers. You should go check out the Mienshao Unmons and Ubers episode. Link in the description.
Shameless plug.
Mienshao, I like it. I'm not gonna say it's great, but it's a fun mon, and he has
kids, Mega Blaziken.
Hey, I made the team counter them. But so another great thing about this team is the Volt turn. He's got so much Volt turn to get in his Xerneas, to get in his Hydreigon. I like this team. This team's fun. But though, here's the thing: his defensive core, I feel like it kind of sucks. I think he was sort of Necrosivo was going for more of a offensive build with some utility with like Tentacruel Spin, Fortress Spin, Modem Defog, and I feel like he sort of accomplished that for a solid offensive team, but defensively this team isn't good. I feel like Tentacruel and Fortress, and Modem and Lando T, which are his main defensive mons, aren't gonna be able to handle his opponent's like sweepers and scary threats because they don't have reliable recovery, and they're going to be weakened pretty easily. So I feel like that could be a bit of an issue. And when you don't have the amazing speed tiers that offensive teams want, it could be very, very hard for this team to start dealing with some of the faster opponents. Like Tapu Koko could pretty easily run through this team. Mega Luke, if Alakazam doesn't come, can run through this team. I just feel like there are a lot of potential options to beat this team down because it's sort of lacking on both the speed tiers and the defensive aspects.
Yeah. Like, I feel like a lot of his, like, all that removal and stuff, when a lot of it's not only just sustaining Xerneas, but I feel like a lot of it's centered trying to help sustain Zard X on this team. And I don't think Zard X brings enough to this team to the point where it solves the problems that the other mods are lacking.
I kind of agree. I see Double Dragon, and I'm always a fan of Double Dragon. But when you have like two dragons and a Xerneas, I feel like you should probably pick up like a Magnezone to sort of trap for you, or a Doug Trio or something. But I mean, Zard can kind of break through the steel types. Zern if it hits its focus blast, but those are they're not great answers, and I feel like having a Trapper would really elevate this team to another level. But that's just my opinion.
The thing is, though, well, I guess in the terms of patching it up, the trappers are mostly gone. You can
Yeah,
get
they are
Mag,
gone.
yes, but
I think the best option around is Gothorita. I don't quite know what tier it's in. I don't even know if it's allowed with Shadow Tag. I don't see why it wouldn't be, but I feel like sorry.
I'm about to say, because he would be dropping his Mega Force because it'd be Zard, though, so it'd be something equivalent of that level.
I guess. I don't know. I feel like the team's good. It just I feel like there are flaws that are gonna stop this from being a top tier team. Mainly the speed tiers and then the defense making it susceptible to setup sweepers. Like how is this team gonna beat a Naganadel? Once it gets a speed boost, Scarf, Lando, Hydreigon, they don't check it. It can't really take a hit from Naganadel. They're just so many setup options.
This team is going to rely on Sash Alakazam to be that failsafe so often. Like, that is the saving grace of this team.
But yeah, so we ready to reveal grades?
Yeah, pretty much. It's still a good team. Just has
It's got the flaws.
Couple of cracks in the crib. Yeah,
it's not perfect. It is not an A in my opinion. You did give it an A minus. I gave it a B plus.
I might. You know what? After discussing it, I think I might drop this down to a B plus.
Yeah. So that's how I felt. I felt like it was overall a very solid team. You can change it to a B plus right now. I don't really care.
I just did, yeah. So sorry,
Oh.
I'm gonna drop this down. Sorry, Necro.
Let me. Oh well, it says A minus for me. Whatever. So basically, it's got the flaws, but overall, it's not a bad team by any means. So let's move on. Lars and the Borussia Dawn fan. Why don't you talk about this team, or go over it at least?
All right, so Lars, he's got Deoxys Attack, Lando Eye. We got a bit nostalgia going into that one. KB, Jirachi, Azumarill, Tangrowth, Conk, Mandibuzz, Slazzle, Lycanroc Dusk, and Mega Manectric.
Mm-hmm. So, when I was watching the draft stream, Lars picked, I think, his first 5 Pokemon before he got his Tier 1 or Tier 2. Which means he got KB, Jirachi, Azumarill, Tangrowth, and Conk, and they were all in Tier 3 or Tier 4. So he got the best value, like, in the league, and I think it really paid off for him when you look at his draft. by picking up the Ubers later on in the draft, because his 9 mons that aren't Ubers all function so well together, and then adding the 2 Ubers just makes the team just so much better. I feel like it doesn't rely on the Ubers like a few of the other teams, but is like enhanced by it. You can run a team without an Uber, and it would still be pretty good when you look at Lars's team.
I do agree with that. Yeah, like just take the top bottom 9 mons, put it like in a noble draft league team. Like that's already a stupid good team of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Then you add big old Landorus Incarnate, which Lars, I think he had this like season 5 or something long ago, and he
He's
loved this
used it.
Pokemon. Yeah, so this is a good nostalgia pick, and it also fits so well with this team.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just got the nuke itself, Deoxys Attack.
Whew, I love it. Yeah, so it's just looking at going over some of the stats of this team. He's got, I think, 4 rock setters, which is pretty good. All of them are offensive, other than like a bulky Jirachi, which it's not the best thing, but you have the options. You could be an offensive rock setter with Deoxys or Lando or Lycanroc, or you could be like a bulky Wisher with uh, Jirachi. He also has the option of spikes on Deoxys, which is always nice to have. Spikes are great. The one place he's lacking in his hazards is removal. Landorus and Mandibuzz are the removal, and they're not bad by any means, but whenever you're in with Landorus, you want to click an attack, or at least you want to U-turn to gain momentum. So Defog isn't the move you want to click the most. And then Mandibuzz, it's not going to be able to take all the hits that it wants to, because there are some Ubers allowed that are going to be able to break through it. So I feel like he could be a bit better on the removal, but Mandibuzz, it's kind of fat. Lando, it can scare things out in Defog. I just feel like it's not the best thing they could be doing. So I guess if I had to pick out something that is kind of bad, quote unquote, would be the removal.
Yeah, that was my one knock against this team exactly. Like, you're not going to be able to if you bring Defog Lando, you're sacrificing a move, you're sacrificing momentum typically.
Mm-hmm.
And just there are some games that just Mandibuzz will be overworked because you don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This team is so perfect if just that one category is the only thing this team is lacking. Everything else is just beautiful. Like, it's so good.
Mm-hmm. Like his speed tiers, he's got the perfect range. He's got 150 Deoxys attack, 135 Mega Manectric, and then he's got 117 Salazzle and 110 Lycanroc, and then 101 Lando. That's a lot of mons over base 100, and they're all threatening. It's not like he has some mons over base 100 that you're never gonna bring. He's got all threatening good mons over base 100 that are gonna be good for the team. He's got a lot of Volt Turn going for him. He's got Lando, Manectric, even Mandibuzz if he wants to, and Jirachi. So he can get in his threats like Kyurem Black, Deoxys, and Lando, and even Azumarill. So and like even Conk. Wow, I just noticed this thing has so many wall breakers and threats that it's going to be really hard to deal with. His defensive core is very small, and like Jirachi tangle with Mandibuzz, and I guess like maybe Sap Siparazu once in a while, or a bulky KD. But even then, that's a really good core when you're looking at it, because he has a Regenerator Mon, he has a Wish Passer. They all work well together typing wise. They're not weak to Edgequake or Bolt Beam thanks to Tangrowth. It's so good. This team is so good.
I am in 100% agreement with that. Yeah, I love this team so much. Nothing on this team is passive, yet it can just eat hits so well. It's so versatile in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like, comparison to other teams that have such good offense, like Tubbs' team, for example, like it has good offense, but its backbone is either passive or just inconsistent. This backbone is offensive and versatile, and is also very consistent as the main difference. Like, it's just
Mm-hmm.
that much. The versatility is just so much more notable here.
Mm-hmm. So, let's move on to the grades. I gave it an A plus. You gave it an A. I felt like this team was near perfect. You kept it just below Nate's draft, which was the Mewtwo Naganadel one.
The
So.
only reason I loved a personal preference, I love this draft more, but in terms of how effective it is, the only thing that keeps this from being an A plus is the removal flaw. That's all it is. It's still a beautiful draft.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the only thing that keeps me from putting it as an A.
So, two more drafts, and it's back-to-back token minorities. First up, we have Jolt. Um, so I'll go over his team real quick. He's got Zekrom, Magirna, Mew with I believe Munium Z is allowed. I think they said that in the draft stream. Mega Arrow, Z Scolipede, Manaphy, Crocodile, Incineroar, Alolan Ninetales, Mismagius, and Breloom. So what you want to get started?
This team is kind of an interesting approach to grade it. Like when you first look at it, it kind of looks as a very much hyper offensive kind of team. Scully Pass looks threatening. It's got mostly bulky offensive Pokemon. And then it does have also a decent defensive backbone. Like Mew is probably the primary form of bulk of this team alongside Ninetales Veil to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Then yeah.
it's not this team is kind of weird to approach it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can't call it hyper offense, I can't call it balance, and I can't call it I don't know. It's not I don't really have a category to put this team into. It's very weird looking.
I would, if I had to name it, I would give it bulky offense because he's got a lot of threats that can take hits and then dish back a ton of damage, such as Incineroar, Zekrom, Magirna, Mew, Manaphy, and then he's got the Veil option just thrown onto it, which makes Mons like a Rock Polish Mew or Shift Gear Magirna so much more threatening, and it lets Mons like Zekrom and Mega Arrow take so many more hits. I think Veil is a great option here. I remember looking in the GBA fan Discord, and there was a lot of praise for this team. I don't think it's one of the. I don't think it's like top 3 or maybe even top 5, but I think it's definitely a good team because when you look at it, he doesn't really have any uh, walls, I guess, other than Mew, but most of his mons can pretty easily take a hit or two, especially under Veil. So I like it.
Yeah, the Veil is definitely a major selling point for this team just because, like, Shift Gear Mag is threatening, Scully can be threatening on its own, or even when it passes. Since, to our knowledge, Speed Boost Pass is legal.
All
Uh,
right.
and, like, there's just a lot going for this team. Into Manaphy, Tail Glow is just stupid, especially when it's not going to die in one hit thanks to Veil backing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's if I had to name a downside to the team, I feel like there's just certain points that are just very frail that you can crack this team open. If you're going for a setup kind of game, knocking out Ninetales could be very detrimental. Also, if you're dealing with something like Scully, you're just able to deny setup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I felt like this team it kind of relies on Alolan Ninetales because when you look at the Ubers mons that were drafted, they're gonna be able to break through the somewhat bulky mons like Mega Arrow and like Crocodile. So I feel like Veil is kind of I guess not necessary, but it makes the team so much better. And if you lose it, the games might not go your way, and it's kind of I don't know, it's kind of tough. Let's see, what else did I write down? I guess
Is
the main point would be like the defensive core is kind of weird. Like it's much more of a bulky offense team than a balance or a hyper offense team.
also another thing I don't like his removal that much. It's Mew and Mega Air, and you don't want to run
True.
defog on Aerial that often, and then shuttling Mew into defog trap so many people fall into.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you made Mew your Zmon, when you could have made like Manaphy or Miss Magius your Zmon. If you make Mew your Zmon, you need to make it offensive sometimes. Like it's got to happen. So, uh, anything else to add?
Not really. I think we've covered it. It's just a very strange looking team.
Mm-hmm. So let's move on to the grades. I gave it an A. You gave it an A minus. I just I felt like when I look at it, it can pretty easily take hits and then dish out a ton of damage back. And I felt like that was kind of a good enough strategy in this format with the Ubers because if you're able to like eliminate your opponent's key members by easily taking a hit and then just punching back with a strong move, and then maybe opening the door for like a Shift Gear Magirna SD Scolipede or Rock Polish Mew or anything else, I feel like that's a pretty viable way to win games. So that's why I gave it an A.
Yeah, it's not a bad team by any means. I definitely think this is very strong and powerful. It's just a lot of it, a good number of the things on this team just doesn't make much sense for me to fully lock it in as an A.
That's
And it's
fair, I
just
guess.
it is lacking in certain categories in that point. Like defog is a big one.
Mm-hmm. There is one thing I want to mention that I kind of forgot about is Spore with Breloom and then like into Magirna into Rock Polish Mew or even into like a wall breaking Zekrom could be really crucial. And that's another reason I ranked it highly. Just the Spore support is it's clean.
That's
But
true. You always forget Breloom has Spore. He's
mm-hmm,
always thinking of just the all-out offensive.
mm-hmm. But let's move on to the last team, and that is the other Took Minorities uh, coach, and that is Danza. So, why don't you go over his team real quick?
I'm not gonna lie. This is probably my least favorite team in the league, unfortunately. And we're gonna not then we'll get into a bit why I don't like it, but his roster is Palkia, Genesect, Bulu, Lucha, Heatran, Florges, Heliolisk, Savali, Gengar, Komo, and Mega Alakazam.
Yeah. So, again, same as I think Jolt's team. I saw a lot of praise for this in the fan Discord, and I was confused because I don't
I'm
like this team.
Yeah, I'm very confused because what's evident from this team immediately is that it's missing some very important types.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it has Savali to somewhat patch it up, but it's not going to be able to run every one of them that's missing. Like, he's missing a ground type, which means you're going to start having problems with Volturn.
Mm-hmm.
You're missing a dark type, which means you're going to have problems with dealing with psychic spam to some extent
And
and
even
other
ghost
problems such as
types.
ghosts. Exactly, yeah. So, well, he has a Heliolisk, which is very frail, but that's frail as heck, as we already said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I felt like it was just missing the types. And then another thing I thought it was lacking on was, in general, hazards are bad in this team. He has rocks on Heatran and Como. And considering Como is a Zmon, it's not running rocks every week. And Heatran, it can't really afford to run rocks every week because it's also got to be sort of an offensive like powerhouse, sort of trapping things and doing a lot of damage while also having to be a bulky pivot, I guess. So, you're not always going to get the chance to click rocks with this team. And then on
And
the other end of the spectrum, his defoggers are Florges and Silvally. Florges very rarely has room to run defog because you can't run Wish, Protect, Synthesis, Aromatherapy, Moonblast, Calm Mind. You can't run them all. You just can't. And then Silvally, it doesn't want to come to every game, and when it does come, it wants to have a very defined role as like the ground type or the dark type that's here to take on your opponent's threats. So I feel like both sides of the spectrum for hazards are very bad for this team. Yeah.
yeah, exactly to a T. I hate Florges as a remove so much because Florges I feel is just so pressured to run like Wish Protect. Like you can think, oh, you can get away with not running Protect on Florges. You don't realize until you use it that this thing needs it so much when it tries to recover because there's so much that
Mm-hmm.
can dent it hard enough that where if it doesn't have that Protect, it will probably go down and be in vain.
Yeah.
Like it's the move slot syndrome with Florges is just so restrictive. Lucha will never run defog ever under any circumstances, and
Mm-hmm.
then you're locked into Savali, which is, as we've already mentioned, it's missing so many types on this team that you're gonna have you will more incentivized to bring it, which means you can bring it more often, but you're gonna need to run defog on it almost every single week to an extent. That means,
Mm-hmm.
and you need it to run a very certain role, which you may not be able to cover every single role that you need to cover for certain weeks. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not happy with how he handled his removal.
Me neither. And every time you click defog with Silvally, that means you're not clicking parting shot, which means you lose momentum. And this team, it really wants to keep up momentum with its strong mons like Palkia and Genesect. So I'm not too big a fan. Um, Another thing I want to hit on is the speed tiers. Throwing on a Mega Alakazam as the last pick of the draft. Was it the last pick? I don't know. In the last round, at least, doesn't fix your speed tiers. Other than that, you have Paulucha and then a huge jump to Gengar at 110. So any of those like base 130 mons, base 125 mons, they're gonna run all over this team. Like there's just really nothing it can do, and I can't really, I can never get behind that.
Yeah, it's just kind of a convoluted mess. Like you have, I think his best option he's going with is just kind of powerful vertical turn from like Genesect into Palkia or Heatran that can just hit things hard. But the defensive backbone and just the support for this team is just very, very poor.
Hmm. Yeah. So the hazards and the defensive backbone is just kind of being weird. It's just I don't know. It made me and you both give it fairly low grades. Let me check mine because I feel like I might want to lower it. Oh yeah, I do. All
Yeah,
right. So
I'll,
now that we
I'll give it
changed that, I'm gonna reveal the
I'll
grades. Oh, sorry. You
I'll
wanna?
give it I'll give it one saving grace before, since I have been ripping on it the entire time.
Hmm.
Like I said, I do like he does have some momentum, and Bulutran is a decent score that's pretty standard, but it's pretty decent in of itself. That validates having a defensive presence. It's not
Hmm.
good support wise, but it has synergy of some kind, which I give this credit, at least that much credit.
That is true. Bulutran and then throwing a Lucha is always solid. Palkia and Genesect combined are very, very hard to switch into because they both have amazing coverage options. So that could be, again, lead Danza to a couple wins. But overall, it's not a great team. So let's jump into the grades. So, oh, it didn't change. All right, my bad. So
Well,
I gave it a B. You gave it a B minus. Um, I changed mine to a B minus because the more we talked about it, the more I realized like, man, I don't like this team at all. It's missing the hazards, which are a key part in any league. The defensive core is weird. It's not good. So yeah.
like honestly, if Bulutran wasn't as competent as a defensive synergized core as it was, this would be a C team to me. Not gonna lie.
Hmm. Yeah, because there is a little bit of synergy here with like the Bulutran, the Halucha, the first two picks. They're like it's a decent team. I don't like it at all, and I don't think you do either. So.
No, I do not like this team. Like I couldn't. There every other team I tried to scrutinize as much as I wanted to, but they were all really really solid. But when I came to this team, it's got so much right at the surface that you can pick at right away, and it's just I don't like this team.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, Danza, but I don't know how good you are as a player. You'll probably do well, even despite what I've said. Prove me wrong, but from the surface level analysis, I'm not a huge fan of this team.
Hmm. So that is all of the teams. Let me jump back to the beginning real quick. So here is all the coaches' Twitter handles and their team, their logo, anything else you want to see. A couple of the graphics, mainly the logos in the first two slides, came from the GBA channel. Again, link in the description. Um, so yeah, it was a fun video. Do you think so, Justin?
Yeah, it's an interesting experience. Like it was really nice to have like to look at a whole list of good competent players, because sometimes when you have like I want to say random leagues you join, you have like really big mixed backs that you have. In this league, it's just so nice to see a group, everybody who knows what they're doing, looking at it and comparing and contrasting. I
Hmm.
love this experience. Like this was a really good
Yeah.
analysis.
Yeah, and it's definitely fun to analyze a league that you're not in. So,
Oh, of course, that too. Yeah.
but that is gonna be it. I'll see you guys later with some WPL content, some more Mienshao and Ubers, who knows? But yeah, that'll be it for this video, and I will see you guys later. Peace.
Subscribe to GBA.